Hello, Mortals Market. My name is Courtney Lane, and I am a Victorian hair artist, historian, and professional weirdo. Now, I say that I am a weirdo mainly because that is exactly what people think when they first learn that my career revolves around making artwork and jewelry out of human hair, especially the hair of the deceased. And admittedly, it is a little unusual in today's day and age, but if we go back to the Victorian era, this art form was not only common, but wildly popular. Victorian hair art can come in many different shapes and sizes, including but not limited to large, elaborate hair flowers woven into wreaths, flat hair pictures to be framed much like a painting, or even braided into intricate jewelry. And although hair art was used for all manner of sentimental purposes, it was integral to Victorian mourning because hair is quite resistant to decay and therefore a safe part of your loved one that you can keep long after their death. Although the Victorians were credited as industrializing hair work of this kind, early iterations of this art can be traced back to the 16th century, and hair has been used in sentimental gestures and ritual mourning for thousands of years across many different cultures. So one could say, perhaps, that modern society are the weird ones for not keeping mourning hair more often. After all, it's really only been the last 100 years or so where it's fallen out of fashion. But by making modern pieces of mourning hair work and educating people on the often misunderstood history, it is my goal to ensure that this sentimental tradition is never forgotten. So, without further ado, I am here today to answer your questions. I received so many wonderful questions that I just don't have time to cover them all today, but if you find yourself utterly fascinated by hair work, I'd invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hair and Now. Why yes, you can expect hair puns and weird death things. I will also be making a second Q&A video with bonus Mortals Market questions that will be posted over there. My first question today is one that many of you asked, which was some variation of how much hair do you need to work with? And I always say that there are some options for any amount of hair, but when possible, I always recommend getting as much as you can because the more hair I have, the more options we have to play with. But for your reference, this is the shortest lock of hair that I have ever made a three-dimensional flower with, although bear in mind I usually recommend longer hair for that particular technique, and the shortest length of hair I've ever used, period, is probably this paw print locket, which I made with a single small lock of Chihuahua fur. Do you often find random hair around your workstation? No, my workspace is very well organized because most of my work is done on a custom basis with a client's sentimental hair, so I really need to have a fastidious system in place in order to take good care of it. Although, one time a friend of mine did bring me a bag of his beard hair and I forgot that I had shoved it into my purse until I accidentally pulled it out at the grocery store checkout line while searching for my wallet. And let me tell you, the look on that cashier's face was priceless. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my friend's beard. Let me just, What made you want to be a hair artist? What was your artistic journey? Now that was a journey. It really all began back when I was 5 or 6 years old and my grandma took me to New Orleans to tour the above-ground cemeteries. At the time, she had no idea that I would even understand what we were looking at, but I knew and I was enthralled. I thought the monuments were fantastically beautiful and far different from the cemeteries we'd passed by in the town I grew up in, and I could just feel the history that I knew was so much bigger than myself. This sparked what became a lifelong obsession with the way humans have memorialized our dead throughout history. Since I already existed in this world of mourning and memorials, I never really had the visceral feeling of astonishment that most people have when they first encounter hair work, but Here I saw that this was not only a sentimental and unique work of art, but it was actually made with a part of your loved one. It just made so much sense to me. I began to study antique pieces and research the history of hair art, and I did this for years before I ever learned how to make it. At first, I didn't even think to or want to be a hair artist. For one, I have no patience to work with the hair that's on my own head, but also because my first artistic love lived in the performance arts, specifically dance. I would choreograph and perform dances about death, grief, and other difficult topics, but I do have a genetic disability, and around the time I needed to start walking with a cane regularly, I knew that my life as a performer needed to be short-lived. Grieving profusely for the loss of my own ability to dance freely and safely, I leaned heavily into hair work. I decided at first that I would just try to sate my curiosity for learning how these pieces were constructed, and once I figured it out, I would be done, but here I am now, and the rest is hairstory. I know from hairstylist friends that hair can be like daggers in your skin. How do you protect your hands? This is a very good point that not a lot of people know about, but hair splinters are a very real thing, my friends. And I honestly rarely have an issue with my hands and fingers, but I get them in my feet from tiny shards of discarded hair that fall to the floor while I'm working. Specifically, for some reason, my left big toe. I swear, if there was a world record for the person who has gotten the most hair splinters in their left big toe, I would win by a landslide. It's ridiculous. Can I decide before I die that I want my hair as art? Can I make the arrangements while I live? Why, I'm so glad that you asked. It just so happens that I have a friend who is great at answering questions about preparing your death plan. Hello, deathlings. It is I, Caitlin Doty, your mortician. Okay, sorry, I couldn't resist. This could probably be a whole video onto itself, but basically I would say yes. However, I will say that unless there's a situation of an imminent death, such as a terminal illness, I don't recommend making plans specifically with me because I'm basically a one-woman show and we have no way to prove that I will outlive whoever we're making the arrangements for, if that makes sense, and I just wouldn't feel comfortable taking anybody's money with such uncertainty. But if you know you want your hair made into art after you die, then there are definitely options to help you prepare. First of all, if you get a haircut while you're still alive, just go ahead and save it. There's no rule that says that morning hair has to be cut after death. Keep your haircuts in a plastic bag and label it so that no one who comes across it later is left wondering whose hair it is. Fill out an advance directive to specify the person who you want to entrust your end-of-life decisions to and articulate your wishes to them. You can even specify on the advance directive that you do not want your body buried, cremated, donated, etc. until someone has had a chance to cut your hair. Talk to the person taking ownership of your hair and decide who will cut your hair after death. It can be the person keeping it themselves if they want to, or the mortician you're working with should be more than happy to do it. If you want to take it even a step further, you can get a will involved. If you want to, for example, dedicate your own money to be used toward a memento, this is how you can write up those specifications. Hair itself also falls into a really weird gray area where, yes, it technically is a part of your body, but the law doesn't really treat it the same way it treats the fleshier bits of our bodies. So unlike a corpse, someone can legally own hair as property once it's cut off. So you can by all rights will your hair to someone who will be able to carry out your hair work wishes. And that is all the time I have here for today. Please check out my shop, Never Forgotten by Courtney Lane, where you can purchase tickets to an upcoming online workshop where you can learn how to make your very own Victorian hair flowers. You will also find artwork and jewelry made out of real Victorian era human hair and morning person merch. Here are other places where you can follow me, and please don't forget to check out Hair and Now on YouTube. Enjoy the rest of the market. Caitlin, how do you keep your hair looking so good when I can't even do it with literally a wig?